Good evening. The government has ordered a CBI probe into whether bribes and kickbacks influenced the purchase of 12 super swanky VVIP helicopters from Italian aerospace and defense giant Finmeccanica to ferry around the president, the prime minister and other Indian dignitaries. Despite allegations of kickbacks surrounding the deal since it was inked, the defense ministry had refused to set up a probe, but a couple of arrests in Italy have sent jolts through the corridors of South Block. The 3,546 crore contract for the 12 3-engine AW101 helicopters was signed in February 2010. Italian authorities arrested Finmeccanica chief executive Giuseppe Orsi in Milan. Three others, including the head of the Italian major's UK-based unit, Augusta Westland, Bruno Spalloni, were also placed under house arrest by an Italian magistrate. Although connected to the alleged payment of 51 million euros by Augusta Westland to a Switzerland-based middleman to swing the Indian VVIP chopper deal, the arrests come as part of a wider ongoing judicial investigation in Italy into financial malpractices as well as political kickbacks and bribes by some major Italian industrial giants to bag contracts. The suspicion of bribery in important defense deals has plagued successive governments, and this one could not have come at a worse time for a government which has struggled to fend off the perception of a major spike in corruption under its charge. The allegation and arrest, experts say, can prove to be detrimental to other already delayed defense acquisitions, as well as raise doubts about the oft-repeated claims of the Defense Ministry about the effective ban in place against middlemen and arms dealers. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight on the show, we look at the latest scandal to hit defense procurements. We will also try to look at the big picture of the state of India's defense deals. Should India take a cue from countries like the US and look favorably at lobbyists facilitating deals? Should we allow brokers and middlemen to work above the radar to reduce the chance of kickbacks? And most importantly, what does the state need to do to ensure a higher level of transparency in all these related to defense forces? All that and more in the next 25 minutes. With me tonight is Retired General Ashok Mehta, also former Foreign Secretary Air Commodore Prashant Dixit. Former Defense Secretary Ajay Prasad will also join us, as well as Vinay Kumar, Senior Assistant Editor with The Hindu. Welcome, gentlemen, to the big picture. First up, reactions on the news of the arrest. If I could start with General Mehta. There have been allegations against former Air Chief Marshal S.P. Tyagi. He has very swiftly junked all bribery charges. But first reaction on yet another alleged tainted deal, starting with you, General Mehta.
Well, I think it's terribly, terribly unfortunate and a great tragedy that just when the new defense budget is to be announced, just when defense cuts are already announced, just when people don't expect this year's defense budget to be as large as it has been the last 2 years, you have this scam. Because as you said in your introduction quite rightly, that such a scam coming at this time is bound to affect the operational preparedness and the modernization of the armed forces. Now, if I can make two other points which are taken from your introduction. The first is about arms agents and dealers. I believe, like the oldest profession in the world, you cannot do without arms agents, whether you call them consultants, you call them facilitators, you call them agents. In fact, there is an international directory of people who lobby or facilitate arms deals. So I cannot believe that you can have an arms deal where no money is exchanged as for services rendered. Now, the only way you can do this is if you have what is known as a government-to-government sale, a foreign military sale between India and the United States to a large extent obviates this. The second point I want to make is, and which is really, really sad, is this business of politicization of national security.
True.
I believe that the greatest disservice to national security, defense preparedness, operational preparedness is being done by our political class. And I cannot help, and I'll stop here, I cannot help but quote a former vice chief of air staff, who was the last vice chief, Air Marshal Barbosa, who at a public function, at a seminar said that one of the gravest tragedies is that our modernization gets affected by the government in power, because what happens is that they are very careful about the deals, and B, they know that the successor government is going to pick up these issues, like it happened in the case of NDA and UPA.
I take your point. I want to get another perspective in. Prashant, Dixit, you obviously heard what General Mehta had to say. Strong views, understandable views. Your first reaction to when you heard that there could be yet another tainted deal, yet another scandal, yet more skeletons tumbling out of the closet. Your views on the news?
Honestly, I like to hang on and wait what eventually comes out. What happens in the Italian government and Italian state is truly no concern of mine. I understand that Italy is also inflicted with their little political battles. Finmeccanica is 30% owned by state. There may be a power struggle, and this may have led. These arrests have been ordered, but there is no trial in court as yet, and I am not ready to accept as that. Right. Having said that, sir, and I take General Mehta's point of view, you know, in a society like India or in South Asian societies, the process of bribe taking is a phenomenon well established over the years. But that doesn't mean people stop working. They got to get on, follow the rules, and if you find a culprit, take him to task. Unfortunately, the Indian system, especially the process of law, is very slow. It doesn't let you culminate the process. But having said that, let me say, let's work the system. And let's trust our people.
Absolutely.
Today, the civil servant is not ready to sign. He is, because he's not too certain whether he may be railroaded and sent to jail.
And I want to take that point up again. There was this point where when there was a pro forma letters being sent, but I'll talk about it in just a bit. I want to go to Ajay Prasad for just a second. Welcome, Mr. Prasad, first of all, on the show. I want to ask you this. When reports last emerged, last year, I guess, when Augusta Westland's sale of 12 choppers to India was tainted by kickbacks, A.K. Antony, the defense minister, immediately ordered a probe. St. Antony, as someone called him the other day, he's known for his probing nature as well. He's known to be quite a straight arrow as well. But after a couple of pro forma letters to the Italian and British authorities, the bureaucracy in the defense ministry sort of gave up and expressed their inability to continue with that investigation. Thoughts on the fact, Mr. Prasad, that an investigation was started, but allegations came, but abandoned midway. Your thoughts on that, sir?
See, this is very unfortunate. Now, if the government had wanted to act seriously and with strong will, easily what they could have done was they asked this Italian company to come here and lay their cards on the table on the threat of having discontinued the whole contract. The deliveries of these helicopters had just started. The company was vulnerable. They would have been more than happy to share whatever information they could to preserve and to save the deal. We should have insisted on doing that somebody from the company come here and tell us all that the Italian authorities had unearthed till then. However, that was not done. And now we have got into a situation where we are all looking very embarrassed about this. We still don't know. I agree with Mr. Dixit that we still know too little about it to pronounce any judgment on this as to what exactly has happened.
Right.
And I will not at this stage like to condemn anybody in this.
Right.
But there was a process available to which could have been carried out.
Absolutely. Mr. Prasad, I want to go to Mr. Vinay Kumar, who's also a fellow journalist. I want to get your view, Vinay, on this. Almost a generation after the Bofors scandal broke out, yet another tainted deal, like I was just telling Mr. Dixit, skeletons tumbling out. There is a view, and it's quite a popular view, Mr. Kumar, that in India, if you don't want to find evidence of corruption, you usually don't. And do you share the view that if the Defense Ministry had probed just a little deeper back then, we would have, have known of whatever wrongdoings a while ago?
Now we have after GOM on national security had given very wide-ranging recommendations. We now have a defense procurement policy which has been in place since 2008 onwards, and there have been many amendments to it also. And as Mr. Antony himself was pointing out today when he was talking to journalists, that there is a clause for integrity pact also. So we have tried to insulate, follow a procedure, and institutionalize these big ticket purchases. But unfortunate part is somehow or the other, these allegations have been going on for the past 11 months. And Italian magistrates have, the Italian system has gone, investigators have gone and, done their preliminary inquiry. On that basis, they have alleged something which we are not privy to what their inquiry report says conclusively. They have not arrived at any conclusion, and then it's very unfortunate that this kind of deal runs into hits this rough patch. And the India is a big ticket defense spender, and Bofors was just 65 crore kickback allegation, which brought down Congress government, and now we have 360 crore allegation of kickbacks. So all this is very murky, but unless and until we get some conclusive evidence, we established something. And as far as, the CBI is concerned, it also means, going to foreign countries. Here, the CBI can only investigate, that what deviations took place from the requirements which are set in the tender. There are constraints are too many on CBI also.
Right, I take your point.
That is why you see, the CBI has not made much progress in, past defense deals. It's come a cropper, they have hit a roadblock many times, and many governments don't share their, probes, results of their investigations. So it's really a very hard nut to crack.
Absolutely.
And money trail is just impossible to trace.
I'll talk about 2 points that you just raised, the money trail one, and also the fact that CBI doesn't have really the kind of purview it really needs. I want to come to that in just a bit, but before I go into a small break, one quick reaction from you, General Mehta, on this particular topic, that if A.K. Antony had asked the Defence Ministry to go ahead and investigate it, the fact that they left it midway, do you think that was unfortunate?
Well, yes. Despite his very noble intentions, despite his crusading about honesty and transparency, despite at least 7 amendments to the DPP since 2005 on transparency, I think the Defence Minister has failed singularly in finding a balance between probity and operational readiness, because I think people will fault him for blacklisting companies. Blacklisting companies or completely carte blanche means that you won't have a gun. You want, now this helicopter deal, for example, the next deal which is in the queue is the 197 utility helicopters. Right. They will not come. Now, Mr. Antony has to establish a system in which our operational preparedness does not suffer, because this is what is happening.
Absolutely.
Money will continue to change hands, inquiries will continue to be held,
but we need a process in place.
Governments will change, but I think there should be a political consensus on a system to be adopted, whether it's the American system or the British system. The Indian system has failed.
Very, very briefly, sir, before I go into a break, you had a point.
Yes. Only thing what I want to say, I don't want to be in Mr. Antony's shoes. His life has become difficult. On one hand, as he says, operation preparedness is to be pursued. On the other hand, probity is to be established. What does a man do? Now, agreed, he is blacklisted. The blacklisting of the firm in South Africa, Daniel and all, somehow they, retarded the process of small arms and things like that. But my problem is, with everything having been developed, he is a political leader. He cannot just go about spearheading. He has to find probity in his actions.
He can't bulldoze his way through.
He cannot. It's extremely difficult. So what do we do? I think his hand needs to be held. How do we do it? Media can do a lot, but media is forever, chasing hounds. And I am sorry to say, in a forum like yours, sir, that they are doing injustice to the system.
Fair point, sir. Fair point. I'd like to explore that point, but that's after the break. We'll also look at the larger picture of defense deals in general in India. That's after the break. Don't go anywhere. Keep watching The Big Picture. Welcome back to The Big Picture. I want to go straight to Mr. Vinay Kumar. And briefly, sir, if you could let's look at the larger picture now, like I said before the break, of defense deals in general. The defense minister had promised, and my guests in the studio have mentioned that he'll clean up the process of defense procurements, and he said that quite a while back, actually. What tangible steps have we seen till now? You mentioned some in your first answer. Has anything concrete been done that we can actually write home about?
You know, it's really very sad that, you know, despite all these efforts by successive governments, and despite having, as General Mehta was pointing out, DPP, Defense Procurement Policy in place with several amendments in inclusion of Integrity Pact, and you know, how they deal with the Indian government. These allegations have surfaced time and again, and you know, whether it is 4,000 crore deal or whether it is, you know, the mega deal of Rafale, which is in the pipeline, 126 fighter jets to be brought from France, Dassault. All these, you know, have somehow or the other, you know, have led to a situation where these allegations of bribery, money changing hands, and influence, undue influence being exercised on the government, on the major players, they have come about. Now the need is to have an institutionalized system, a well laid down policy we have, but somehow or the other it has failed to click. So where is the fault? This is for the government to find out and, you know, keep things fine-tuned so that, you know, these allegations do not surface time and again.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And as Defense Minister himself was saying, there is no cause for worry. You know, we have insulated ourselves with the Integrity Pact. Any deal which is worth more than 300 crores, we are governed by that integrity clause, Integrity Pact, and we'll get all the money back.
Right.
But then all this while, India is also sending a signal to, you know, all the big defense giants that it is very difficult to do business with it.
Right. And
so is this the signal? We had a time, you know, army has not had an artillery gun for the past so many years. You know, now is the time when army is scouting for ultralight howitzers.
Right, sir.
So many deals are in the pipeline. Many deals have fallen by the wayside. But this is not the signal which India should send, that, you know, it's very difficult to do business
Absolutely.
here.
Point well taken, sir. This is the wrong kind of signal we are sending. I want to go to the former Defense Secretary on the panel. Mr. Prasad, on the question of middlemen, and this is really the central theme of what I wanted to arrive at, on the question of middlemen, intermediaries who lobby and curry favors and try to facilitate deals between governments and major arms players. There is this view, and hear me out, that the process is quite above the level, say in the United States of America, and they let them do it above the radar. What is your outlook on that as a former Defense Secretary? Is there a way of increasing, if not ensuring, more transparency if we let them do that?
There is an absolute case for bringing these people, whether you call them agents or consultants or whatever, from their subterranean depths into the sunlight. In the United States, as you yourself said, there are known lobbyists, there are groups which are, they are agents who work on this openly and in a regulated sort of a fashion. Now, an attempt was made here, you know, in 2001, 2002, an attempt was made in the Government of India, Ministry of Defense, that we should also register representatives, technical representatives. The theory behind this was that in long deals, which take a considerable amount of time, the foreign original equipment manufacturers have to appoint some local representation to answer various technical questions, to attend various meetings, collect questionnaires, get information back and forth. And for these services, there should be an authorized payment available to them. And a policy was announced where, you know, people were invited to register themselves as representatives of foreign OEMs. Not one registered himself.
Right.
And after some time, this remained a dead letter in the files of the ministry. Now, the way this is operating in India is that these people like to operate in the shadows, They wouldn't like to be their names to be known to the various revenue and tax authorities. They would not like to be seen openly in the corridors of power or anything performing a legitimate service. And that is why this whole thing never came. But I entirely support this argument that there should be a way of bringing them out and registering them and get them to perform certain legitimate service for a certain legitimate consideration.
Absolutely. I want to put the same question to Mr. Dixit. Like my guest over there said, from the subterranean depths to the sunlight, will that increase efficiency and transparency? What's your view?
Well, whatever you do, efficiency or transparency, if the process of bribing is a way of life in this business, that, sir, will continue. And my earnest recommendation is, let's get on with doing what we have set out to do. We have a fine policy. Yes, we can bring in that aspect with Mr. Ajay Prasad has said. But will that guarantee the bribes will not be paid? No, sir.
No guarantee.
Therefore, the best way is to do your job. And if you find a bribe taker or a bribe giver, take them to task. Build the system towards that. The Indian state looks forward to that. Today's youth looks forward to that. Nobody wants to live in a corrupt society. And it wants to prove itself.
Right. I think I want to know what General Mehta's views on this. I think you have an interesting take on this.
No, indeed. I hope I don't disappoint you if it's not interesting. I think the idea floated by Ajay Prasad needs to be examined and reinvented, because, you know, for a long time, political parties have treated defense deals as a means of making money for their electoral kitty. During Mr. Rajiv Gandhi's time, during some prime minister's time, this was considered a legit practice. Now, I know this because in the 90s, when I was working as a defense correspondent for the Sunday magazine, and I wrote copiously about the money that was made by every government, whether it was the Congress-led government, whether it was the BJP-led government, then subsequently you had this, what they called United Front government. Every government made money on the Sukhoi deal. So, and they considered it at that time, and I think they still consider it as a legitimate practice, although you don't hear about it. So where does the money go?
But coming to Mr. Dixit's point, even if you let them do, there is no guarantee of no bribes being...
No, but I'm not saying money will not exchange hands. Money will, of course, exchange hands, but there'll be much greater transparency. People will come out of the woodwork and they will register. As I said, there is an international directory of arms agents.
So something perhaps to look at.
So yes, indeed. And in fact, and if I can just add this bit, that recently, that is 2 years ago, a committee was established in the United Kingdom. It was headed by a very famous journalist, and they worked on the balance between operational readiness, preparedness, and probity. And they've come out with an SOP which meets both the requirements, both probity and your operational readiness. And I forget the name of the committee, but it happened in 2010.
On that note, sir, I'd like to go to Mr. Vinay Kumar. Vinay, we don't have much time left, but I want your views on the same thing. General Mehta just said that there was a report that takes into account both probity and operational preparedness. If that criteria is actually taken care of, do you think there's a case which says, do you think the case has any weight that perhaps, like Mr. Prasad said, let them come out of their depths into the sunlight, and that perhaps might increase efficiency? Your thoughts briefly, sir.
Yeah, it might, but as Mr. Prasad himself pointed out that, you know, not one soul came forward to register himself. So this world remains, you know, they operate in shadows, and for fear of authorities or, you know, tax authorities, they don't come out in open. But if there has to be something like this, it can be examined. It should be examined by all stakeholders, including political parties, ruling and opposition both. And then, some well laid down policy can be considered, as we have lobbyists in US and in other countries like in UK, General Mehta was pointing out, there was a committee. So these aspects can be examined, so that how can we get rid of these things, and it does no good to the country's prestige and image that every time there is a deal, there is a big ticket deal and these allegations start surfacing. So India's image and gets sullied also.
Right.
Corruption is nobody would like to deal with.
Right, Vinay. I have to stop you there. I have 30 seconds. So I want to put one very small, slightly controversial question to you. When General VK Singh was army chief, he took up the issue of corruption in defense. He became the target of organized mudslinging. Some people say, shouldn't we fix accountability somewhere? Serial cases of corruption are popping up every day. So how about fixing some accountability somewhere at least as a first step? Very briefly, sir. 30 seconds.
You already have systems to fix accountability. I'm only saying work the systems. We are not working the systems.
Implementation.
Yes, implement it.
Absolutely.
Spirit and letter, take it to the last word.
Right. On that note, sir, I have to end the program. I must thank all my guests. Before I sign off, Retired General Mehta, many thanks for joining us on the show. Prashant, Dixit, Mr. Ajay, Prasad, as well as Vinay, Kumar. That's all the time we have. Yes, perhaps there might be a slight case, and perhaps even a weighty case to let these people, these agents, the facilitators, so-called, to come out of the subterranean depths, like Mr. Prasad said, and come into the sunlight. Perhaps that might just increase efficiency, if not ensuring it. That's all the time we had. Like I said, Athar Khan saying goodbye, good night, and thanks for watching The Big Picture.